Hey everyone, it's Brenda back again with another episode of Three Uniques. Today I have on Laura Van Der Veer. Hi Laura, how are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so great to have you on. I was recently on an IG Live with Laura and her business talking about She Summits Forum. Well, we were actually talking about my business, Three Uniques Coaching, but I was on her Instagram Live and that was super fun. So I asked her to come on my podcast because I'd love for her to talk a little bit more about what she does. So just a brief intro, and then Laura's going to share some more information about herself. Laura's the co-founder of the She Summits Forum. She's a certified forestry therapy guide, which I definitely want to dig into more, a community builder, and a woman led business mentor. So
Mhm.
lots of things, but there's other things that we need to know about you. So, what else do we need to know? And then we'll find out a bit more about She Summits.
Well, thank you for that intro. I would add to that, like, I'm a mom of a almost 23-year-old amazing girl who is looking forward to going to law school soon. And I'm a serial entrepreneur, have been for 20 plus years, and definitely a nature nerd, which we'll tap into, I know, when we talk about the being a certified therapy guide.
And you got a dog behind you, so
And
you're
I
excited.
have a dog behind me, Bo. Yeah, he's a new addition. He's a Mexican rescue from Tijuana, and he's amazing. Very empathetic and like just lovely and caring. And he will sit there for the hour. Yeah. Mhm.
Awesome. And so, talk to me a little bit about She Summits Forum. This is a new venture, a relatively new venture for you and your partner. But give us some
Yeah.
background into it and what it's all about.
For sure. So yes, it's relatively new. Actually started in 2018. The founder is Carla Capito, and she started with, I believe it was like a VIMP collaboration with the Vancouver Film Fest, and then I joined forces with her, and we did two festivals. So it was like a 4-day festival, including films, panel discussions, an environmental component. It was amazing. The energy was just phenomenal. And then her and I decided that we were going to go across Canada and do this tour. And we got through 3 cities before COVID hit us. And so we decided to figure out what does that look like. And she decided that she was going to move on from She Summits. It was actually called She Summits at the time.
Mhm.
And so I was seeking out a business partner, which I know we're going to be talking a little bit about in a few minutes. But I seeked out a person because I didn't want to do it on my own. I was like, so I sat with She Summits for about 6 months and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with it. And then definitely seeked out Danielle LaRue, who's my business partner now, and we created the She Summits Forum. So we've actually launched the membership model in the end of April. So we're relatively new for sure.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so talk to me about how you and Danielle got connected.
She was running a business called Renew Retreats, and so definitely a like-minded um, community organization. And she had a full-time job as well,
Mhm.
and she was looking for something new as well. And her and I just connected, and it just worked out. It's very serendipity. So I reached out to her and had coffee, and before you knew it, we became business partners and just completely aligned. So the She Summits Forum went from being that film festival to being an online membership that has a human component. Everything we do has a human component to it as well. But really, the She Summits Forum is a community, a purpose driven community platform uniting ambitious women of all ages who really want to beat burnout and thrive in work and life. And we have memberships both for organizations as well as for individuals.
Mhm.
And our main customer is organizations for them to purchase this program for the women in their organization. And our members find inspiration through we still have a film component. So we have inspiring, very short films, international films. We have coaching. Danielle's actually my business partner is a coach as well. So she does coaching sessions. We have panel discussions and we have a nature. So I bring in the nature components. We always have like a monthly meetup in nature or a hike and connect or a forest therapy session out in nature. So yeah, it's a
Oh,
little snippet on what we do.
yeah, it sounds so cool. And so talk
Yeah.
to me about and share with us a little bit more about the forest therapy background that you have. How does that incorporate into the She Summits forum? But also just how did you get into that?
Truly, that happened during COVID. Well, actually, I say that's happened my whole life in the way that I've just always had a connection with nature. And
Mhm.
we recently, almost 2 years ago, moved to Squamish just to be closer to nature and the forest. And so it's always been a part of me. And in most um, organizations that I've worked with through my consulting business has some kind of nature component. And same with Danielle. Again, her business was actually taking women onto hikes, and she had a forest and a hiking component as well. So it was always sort of linked. And then through COVID, I was like, what's something that I could just do to add to my education? And so I took a forest therapy. I seeked out a coach, and so this lovely lady in New York City, of all places, she ended
Right.
up certifying me through her program. So it's mainly tapping into your five senses. So it's like really being aware of your five senses in nature. And so we do a lot of different forest exercises. Forest bathing is what some people call it.
Mhm.
And it really is just that's my meditation. That's what I do for meditation. And I love to guide women through the forest, like tapping into these senses. It's
Amazing.
really fun. Yeah.
Amazing.
Mhm.
Any shifts that you've like been able to notice in yourself just by going through, like, like, I mean, you mentioned that you've always been involved in nature and like always felt that connection to nature, moving into Squamish, BC. For those that are listening, it's a beautiful
Yeah,
place. It's just like you're just engulfed in like forests and wildlife and, beautiful West Coast beaches off the coast of Canada, western part of Canada. But for you, like having gone through that experience, do you notice something different now? Like when you're in the forest, when you're in nature, are you like, again, utilizing all five senses?
definitely. That is exactly it. Like I believe everybody tries to figure out how to deal with their own anxieties. And, I look to my brother a lot for being so zen. My brother he's very, very very zen and very in tune with his meditation practices and what I think he's done like 4,000 days of meditation in a row. So I always thought that I was like failing at my meditation. Like I couldn't, I'm an anxious person. I can't sit still. So I was like, I always felt like I was failing at that. And so for me, going into the forest is an instant relaxation. I have my own different types of meditation that I do in the forest. It could be sitting by a tree, it could be doing art in the forest, it could be doing my poems in the forest, it can be doing an actual, if I'm at the computer, it can be just simply doing a visualized forest meditation. And it is shocking that a 30-second to a minute like visualized forest meditation of closing your eyes and picturing yourself there is it instantly lowers my anxiety.
Ugh,
So
amazing.
yeah, it is absolutely incredible. So I do a lot of that where I can actually like I'll for organizations, I'll go on and I'll actually do a session with them where I'm like walking them through this path, and have all these different sensories that they're seeing, and it's like they're actually there. It's
Incredible.
truly phenomenal. Yeah.
Okay, well, we need to like maybe connect again about that. I'm
Yeah.
excited about that
Yeah,
possibility.
for
Um,
sure.
so Laura, you're here today also talk about your three uniques.
Yes.
And so I'm curious what they are. I got a little bit, everyone that's listening, I got a little bit of a preamble before we push record, but
Yeah.
save the best for Laura to share them directly with you.
Yeah, I feel so when I did the quiz, and again, I think we're going to talk about this a little bit, but I did it as well as my business partner. It was a really interesting process to go through.
Mhm.
Highly recommend it. So my what it came out as it came out as a successful synergist, and for me, my three uniques that I nailed down. One is that it's really a have ability to make people feel comfortable in a room. So there's whether it be in a boardroom setting, out in nature, like whatever that means, whatever that might look like, I have the ability to be able to make people feel comfortable and heard in that space. And so that was one of them. My second one would be the fact that I live in the future and not in the past,
Mhm.
and really owning that. What does that look like? It's not being oblivious to your past, and it's not like um, not accepting different regrets and whatnot. It's just like truly I process my past and my present, and then I always live in the future. So that's one of them. And I'd say the third one, which you and I've spoken about before, is the fact that just people always talk about the being real now, and that's such a hot word. And it's like for me, I am a certain optimistic person, and I do see the sunshiny side. And everything that's spit out from your quiz, it
Yeah.
absolutely says that. It screams it off the page.
Yeah.
And it's funny that I used to think that that was a negative, and I remember actually going into booking therapy because I was like, "But am I being real? Am I not being a
Mm,
realist? Am I really like, who am I?" And so it was interesting after all this process, realizing that that is who I am. So what you see, whether you see it on social media and you see it on our website, or you see me in an event or in the forest or whatever, that's truly who I am. And once I realized that, I just had to own, like, I'm owning who I am. It's okay. Like, I
love that.
can't change that. So yeah, that was a really interesting process, especially over the last couple of years when people talk about this sort of being real and, so like, are you really that happy? I'm like, unfortunately, I am. That's who I am.
And are
Mhm.
you in the forest that often? I would say yes, she is. She's on Instagram quite a bit, and if you follow her on Instagram, you'll see Laura like
Yeah.
always posting pictures of herself in the woods with other women doing walks,
Yeah.
talks. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now it's kind of like as we are talking, it's becoming more and more obvious to me that these three uniques that you have are woven through various areas of your life and even in your business. How would you define that for people? Like, I guess one of the, like you said, like when you were doing the quiz, there were lots of things that were jumping off the page. Where you're like, yeah, that's me, that's me. But
Mhm.
like actually living them day to day, like how is that showing up for you in your life? I'm kind of curious, like where you see those three unique showing up in relationships, in your business, in how you think about your health or your wealth, or how you want to impact your community. Where do you see those overlaps happening?
Yeah, definitely. For work, what came to mind right away when you said that was um, the imposter syndrome as well. And it's interesting that, again, we do coaching sessions and panel discussions on imposter syndrome, and it's I know it's out there and whatnot. And it's funny that sometimes I overthought things. So we just did a raise for the She Summits Forum, which was a big ordeal. I've never done a raise before,
Mhm.
and being a female raiser is even more difficult. So it was interesting that I had that in the back of my mind. And there's sometimes that I would either be doing a presentation or booking these meetings, and I was like, I felt like I had to have imposter syndrome. And I was like, but I wasn't feeling that way. And if I overthought it, that made me start getting anxious and whatnot. And that's not who I am. I'm more of a spur of the moment, don't get in your head, like, just go for it. And I'm not going to say the perfect word. You and I talked about this before. Like, I am not like my business partner. I'm not, like, I don't have the perfect words. I am, I'm Laura, this person that, may say something that's a little, um, I don't know, free spirited in a way. And that's okay. And so if I got myself in my head and thought I needed to be like, more like my business partner, or more like those three female investors, or those three female entrepreneurs that just raise money, if I felt like I had to be like that, that's when I got in my head about this imposter syndrome. I was actually creating it.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. We were talking about this yesterday just in my weekly coaching group with some of my clients that I mean, that is really like we were talking about sort of like the five main neurotransmitters, right? And understanding how our like neurochemicals like work together and sometimes oppose some of the things that we want to do. But even in
Mhm.
that situation, that's almost like cortisol, because when you release cortisol in your body, it's an anticipation of something bad happening. It's that anticipating stressor,
Yeah.
like you were almost anticipating being an imposter syndrome
Yeah.
when it wasn't even necessary, right? So it's like,
It's so true.
and being in that judgment about yourself. It's so interesting. And then just recognizing it's like, hey, no, I got this. I can just be myself. And that's part of, I think, like when you talk about She Summits Forum, like
Mhm.
that's what you're all about, right? Is
Yeah.
helping women just be themselves, like be in the present and planning out their future and being together in that sense of community. Like, why wouldn't you come off as being the Laura that you are? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if there was a fourth, it's like it's a bit of being a little naiveness. It's like it's what I don't get myself, if that, 'cause if I know too many of the facts, then I get in my head. So if I just put that little naiveness, like, I'll give you another example. On just the other day, I go on to this. I'm doing a presentation for McMaster, and I had no idea really. Like, Danielle set it up, and I was like, if I had known all the information, I was prepared. I still had all the stuff. But if I had known that I had an hour and 20 minutes, which I had no idea, that's a long time. And I was like, wow, I would have gotten my head. And I'm so glad that I actually knew just enough information for me to do the presentation and not get super anxious over that. So yeah, that's kind of, I don't know if that's a uniqueness or just, I don't know. It works for me.
Yeah. Well, I think when you
Yeah.
recognize it, right? It's like those super, like I think of like, your three uniques as being your superpowers when you recognize it and not overlook it or dismiss it as being like, well, that just comes naturally to me. It's like, yeah, that's called a something that's like, that's a unique talent
Yeah.
or gift or passion that you have, right? And even through your experiences now, you can probably look back in time and go, yeah, when I was feeling that way or staying in my three uniques, I was like my most authentic self versus, oh, I've got to contrive something. Then I get into that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And then the other thing you were saying, like, how is it like with life, your like home life, your work life?
Right.
I also see like that I'm really appreciating other people's differences. So I'm interested, I'm very inquisitive about what are your uniquenesses and how can we work together. And so with my business partner, it was interesting because she is very much attention to detail, such an amazing communicator. Like she is, we are polar opposites when it comes to like the organization, um like just ops, like it's just we are so opposite, but we have the same mission, our values, and all these synergies. And it's really interesting doing this quiz together that we were, you could actually see it on paper, and then we went dissected it and said like that's why we work so well together. And then it's interesting through even my life partner, I feel the same way. We're very polar opposites in so many ways, but it's we just it's so much, it's just so nice to be able to appreciate their uniquenesses and figure out how you can actually dance through life together with these uniquenesses. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm finding it fascinating. And even with my daughter, I feel like you know, when it comes to the your personal life, there's a it's you see the beauty in that other person's uniquenesses, which is really cool. And then also when you own your uniquenesses, they're powerful.
Oh, I
Like,
know. I'm just
oh,
chuckling because I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're like the poster child for three mix.
I love it. It's like, yeah.
No, I totally agree with you because I think we just get so conditioned into, well, when you talk about relationships, say with your life partner, it's like, oh, it's got to be a certain way versus, they can be in their uniques and I can be in my uniques and we continue to foster that like individually, but then we come together around this common vision that we have, which is to
Yeah.
be in a loving relationship together or grow old together or travel together, or whatever it is that you've got in store for your life together with this person. But you can still be that individual that can go after your uniques. I think all too often depends. I mean, you talked about being married before. I was married before as well, and I was married when I was younger, and maybe not really clear about what my values were, what made me unique, and so I felt like in some cases, not that we need to go into like divorce therapy right now, but it's like I kind of went through a stage where it's like I gave up on my uniques, right? I felt like we had to blend them together. And it's like I kind of lost that identity for myself. And
Yeah.
then coming out of my divorce, it was like, yeah, I got to figure out like what it is that I love doing and what I'm really passionate about, what I'm good at doing. Um, and that's really where I sort of started discovering my own work around like the three uniques. And then it
Yeah.
morphed into a company. But I think that's just always such an interesting thing about like as couples coming together, how are you clear on what makes you unique, what makes them unique, and that you don't
Mhm.
have to give those things up when you come together. It's more about like how do we just create that vision or that sense of purpose together.
Yeah, no, that's true. And there's, yeah, exactly. There's also the I would say the phrase between like collaboration versus competitiveness. It's like, what is the, for me, that's huge. Like that's owning who you are. You're not, so when I was comparing myself against my brother, like
Right.
I just really look up to him, and he's like my big brother, that he's found a life, a very it's just such a, I don't know, it's just such a beautiful Zen life that he's created. And so I seek that and I look at that, but that doesn't mean that my route to get there is going to be the same.
Right.
Right. So it's like, so it's not that competitiveness. It's like figuring out what those uniques are and then just running with it. And then, like I said before, it's like not saying just because the society says that you can't use a certain, or say the realness or whatever that word of the year is. It's like, it's not, it's still not kind of buying into that. You still can be who you are,
Hmm.
like, and just own it. And it's like, it's way more fun when you do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Laura, what's something that you've done to invest in yourself personally, say over the last year or 2 years? You mentioned the forest therapy. Is there anything else that like you've done that like you've invested in yourself and you've really seen like a big payoff in your life and your work?
Ooh, lots of things. Like, well, therapy for one thing. Therapy is like for me, it's like we call it a top up or a, it's just more or less being proactive or preventative. So everything I've done this year for myself has been preventative.
Mm,
So I'm turning 50 this year, and this is like a really fun year for me. So I've planned the entire year of what if what works for me for success for being um, 50. And so what does that look like? So I have like mapped out, like I right now I'm doing a road trip on giving gratitude. So it's giving gratitude to all the people that have impacted my life to date. And so I've already started it. It's a whole year, and I've had so much fun. And I've written letters. I got like custom letters that said like a note from Laura, and it's like I write them a letter saying how they've impacted my life.
yeah.
And there are people like I've connected with people that are like 18 years ago and 20 years ago, and it's been lovely. Like I just have been so fortunate to be have impacted and had many layers of my life. So I'm giving gratitude to them. So that's definitely something I'm doing for myself. And yeah, just little things that definitely not living in the imposter syndrome. So when it comes to business, I'd say putting myself out there, networking more.
Hmm.
I was definitely impacted by COVID in the way that I'm trying to get back into the networking world and whatnot. I found that even though I'm um, an extrovert and introvert, I feel like that extrovert side has been harder to get back into. Um, I definitely love my solo time, do solo trips, and love my alone time. But that extrovertedness was stifled during COVID. So I
Hmm.
find it hard to communicate. I just went to a networking event at the chamber the other day, and my words weren't coming out. I was just struggling, and I said, we
So
should do.
practice.
I
Yeah.
should do an event on this. Like people need to talk about it.
Yeah.
What is the world of networking like post like or now in the stage of COVID?
Right.
Because we're all tongue tied and it's like no one wants to look each other and it's different. So
Right.
let's talk about it. Let's have an event or like have a panel discussion about it.
Yeah. Bring it out into the open.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah. I
that.
mean, I was the prime example the other day. I was like, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, no, totally. I feel sometimes a little bit out of practice when I get together with friends that I've known for years and then not being able to see them really over the last couple of years. Yeah, it's just like you kind of have to like build up things again.
Mhm.
Um, my last question for you, Laura, and I love to ask this question of everybody that comes on to the podcast. If I was to give you a billboard and you could put it anywhere in the world, what would you put on it and where would you put it?
That's a great question. Um, okay, just off the top of my head, it would be something along the lines like it's already in you. Like
Mhm.
you have all like we talk about issue summits like about untapping that or like getting into that untapped potential, all of it's in you already.
Right.
It's just you need to surround yourself with the people and the circumstances to ignite that and have the confidence within to ignite it, but it's already in you. So I would say that. And oh my God, like what's the biggest billboard? If you say where, like where's the biggest billboard in the world? I would say the Guinness Book of World Record for the biggest billboard.
Right.
That would be my answer.
Whatever the Guinness book says. Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on some people that have been on, like, they'll go to some of the big ones, like, I don't know, New York, Times Square type of thing. Or I've heard of like in Tokyo, Japan, or, London, England, and like Piccadilly Circus or something like that. So yeah, biggest in the world, wherever that is.
Biggest in the world, and if it was like, yeah, they'd have to go viral somehow. So
Okay.
yeah, I don't know. That would have
Okay.
to be. Yeah.
Very cool. Laura, thanks so much for being on today. And where can people find more about you and also She Summits Forum?
The She Summits Forum, you can find us on IG. It's at the She Summits Forum, or sorry, at She Summits Forum, not the, at She Summits Forum on our website, which we are doing a full rebrand coming up. So that's going to be in the next 6 weeks. But feel free to go to the website and you can check out all the information there. You can DM me on Instagram. I'm at Laura Van Der Veer. You can DM me and I can give you a free trial to the platforms if anybody wants to check out any of the films or any of the events. We'd love to for you to join us on any of the upcoming events. We have a few coming up. Um, Actually, one of them coming up is on Thursday, and it's on tiny habits.
Mm.
So yeah, incorporating tiny habits into your day. So yeah,
Okay, awesome. So we'll make sure that we put all that information in the show notes so people can check you out, find you out. Thanks for being on today and sharing your three uniques with us and telling us a little bit more about what you do.
thank you so much. Thanks, Brenda.
And
Thanks,
for everyone,
everyone.
yeah, and for everyone listening, I always say this at the end. Remember, there's 7.8 billion people on this planet. Somebody needs what you've got, so get out there and share your three uniques. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.